Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Orchid Hut. My name is Dana. Thanks for joining me today. This is part 2 of my Houston Orchid Field Trip Extravaganza that I took 2 Saturdays ago. And today, this is going to be a little bit like eating dessert first, because I'm going to show you all of my haul, and then at the end of this video I will feature each of the nurseries where I shopped, and I will re-mention where each of these great orchids and supplies were purchased. Okay, so before I get started, this is the first time that I'm filming outdoors. This is a potting bench that's around the corner from the Orchid Hut, and when the weather permits I will sometimes come out here and do my repotting. So I apologize in advance if you're hearing outdoor noises. There's a good bit of a breeze today. You may hear children, you may hear traffic, you may hear garbage and recycle trucks going up and down the street, neighbors' dogs possibly barking. So just regular outdoor noises today in the background of this video possibly. And I have to share with you, being out here filming today was like defying all of the elements. The first thing that happened when I brought my camera outside, it's so humid today that the condensation attacked my camera, and I had to wait about 30 minutes for the lens and all of the other parts to defog themselves. And then after I brought all of the items out here to the potting bench to show you, I came back on one of the trips and noticed that it was covered in fire ants. So I had to get the spray to get rid of the fire ants. And now that I've been standing out here for a while, I noticed that the mosquitoes are still not so friendly. So I'm sort of defying all of the elements of Texas. I often wonder why any of the pioneers ever decided to settle here. Okay, so on with the orchid goodies here. I'm going to be starting with the pots, and then we'll get to the plants. On my shopping adventure, I found this cute little puffed clay planter, and it has a wire for hanging it like this, but I'm also imagining that you could plant something and just sit it down like this, and maybe until the orchid roots were able to get into this clay, and then you could possibly hang it. But it's got great aeration. It has a hole in the bottom so that if it were hanging it actually would drain. And I just thought that this was a very decorative way to plant an orchid. Now, I don't know which one. I have a bit of a habit of buying things and then later on figuring out how I'm going to exactly use it. So as I'm going through all of these items, if you guys have suggestions for what orchid should go in what pot, please leave me a note down in the comments, because right now I am undecided how I'm really going to use some of these things. Okay, so this is the next pot. Great for orchids. This one is a bit rustic. It has a lot of holes in it, so lots of aeration, hole in the bottom for good drainage. Some orchid is going to love this pot. I just have to figure out which one. Okay, next pot is a bit more decorative, but again very well suited for orchids. It has more decorative cuts in the side of the pot, great drainage from the bottom. So again, a Cattleya maybe would love this pot, but just unique items. Alright, and then one final pot. This one is just solid red, perfect for a smaller orchid, but it matches the other red in the Mexican clay pottery that I collect, so that was why I got this little pot. Okay, next up. Now, my husband went with me on this little shopping adventure, and he was laughing at me when I purchased this orchid. Okay, so Catasetum. This is my very first one, and I know that It's not great to buy these while they're growing, but it didn't have to be shipped, and it was only living 25 miles from here, so I don't think it had to make a gigantic adjustment by me bringing it home. Let me show you the name, and hopefully the camera will focus on it. And this one is from Sunset Valley Orchids. After Dark is the name of it. And I'm hopeful. I think this is a fall bloomer. I see some tiny, like eyes along the bottoms of the canes. The camera might not be able to get into the pot quite that well, but I'm hopeful that maybe some of those little eyes might turn into a bloom spike. So my husband was laughing at me for having bought such a tattered plant, but I think the leaves will fall off, and fingers crossed I might have a gorgeous bloom from this one in the fall winter. Okay, next up is a Latoria type dendrobium. This one is Maiden Charlotte, and you can see on the tag how it was crossed. I think this might be a primary hybrid. And just the cutest little dendrobium. Now, the growth here is a little unusual. It has new growth, blooming at the same time. Very cute little blooms. It almost reminds me of a lily of the valley type arching bloom there. Okay, next up, another Latoria type dendrobium. This one is, well, you know, it looks like it might not have a hybridized name yet. The tag just has the cross on there. And this one has a cluster of kind of like what you might want to call nodding blooms. So it's like they have all heads pointed down. And I did read about this one a little bit. They suggest planting it in a way so that you can look upwards to see the blooms. And I hear the recycle truck coming. You'll probably hear that noise in the background. Okay, next up is a Oncidium Alliance here. Catatante Sunny Kalapana. Kalapana sounds very Hawaiian to me. It has new growth. I'm noticing today that this pseudobulb is just getting a tiniest bit wrinkled, so I may need to think about giving it a bit of a drink. This one will probably have to go in the house in the summer. It will probably be too hot. Alright, next up. This is a Cymbidium. It looks like Ensign Forest Majolica. The reason that I purchased this Cymbidium is that it seems to be on the smaller side. So, you know, some Cymbidiums can be really large, and this one seemed to be sort of more of a miniature or a mid-sized one. I will be repotting it soon. It looks like the front of the plant has died off, and now all of the new growth is pushing up against this side of the pot, so I will let it get through the blooming season, see if it does anything, and then next spring I'll have to take care of that. Okay, next up, this is Yellow Bird. And again, a plant with a good root system. There are some bloom sheaths that I'm seeing coming right there. And there's another one happening right there. So hopefully I'll have some blooms on this one that I can show you soon. but not least are two what I call discount Phalaenopsis. And I have this theory that there's always room for one more Phalaenopsis, but these will be surprises when they bloom. They are some type of no ID hybrid. They look not exactly miniature, but maybe mid-size. This one was in an orchid greenhouse area that was so humid that it was branching its aerial roots, which you don't see very often. So this has to be repotted soon. Get it out of all of that sphagnum moss and that cheap flimsy plastic pot. And this one the same way, healthy, but not anything that looks like it's going to get super large. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this orchid haul. Next up in the video will be all of the nurseries where these great orchids and potting supplies came from. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button. The subscribe button will be at the end. And also, thank you to all of the new subscribers. I appreciate your company during my videos. See you soon. New Roots is a quaint little nursery in Houston. They did not have any orchid plants for sale, so I didn't make any purchases here, but inside the store there were two vanilla planifolia plants, one growing in a large pot, and then the one in the second photo is growing in water in a very, very, very tall glass vase, which I thought was a unique display method for that orchid. They also had a lot of Edwardian cases, which would be really nice for displaying orchids. Another place in time is a larger nursery in Houston. They have a lot of tropical plants like plumeria, and they had an entire section of orchids that was shaded by some wooden lattice work. I did purchase the two Latoria type dendrobiums here. Buchanan's is a larger nursery in Houston, and the day that I was there they were having a fall festival, so it was just a little bit crowded, but they do have some things for orchids. I bought the rustic clay pot at this nursery, as well as the yellow bird orchid and the Gideon pots that were featured in my Tolumnia repotting video. I saved my favorite stop for last, so I hope you made it to the end of this video. Orchid Express and Leasing is a very unique nursery with many different types of orchids. I made most of my other purchases here, including the little puffed clay pot, the decorative clay pot, the two no ID Phalaenopsis, and a few of the other orchids that I purchased. Thanks for joining me on my orchid field trip extravaganza shopping spree in Houston.